business marketing. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here. This is the second in our series of, how marketers can lead through change, which we created for two reasons. One, and there's a lot of change going on right now, and I think that would be a tremendous understatement by probably everybody here. But secondly, we tend to believe, as I think probably all of you do, that marketers are particularly equipped for leading through change. We're constantly analyzing opportunities, synthesizing strategies, facilitating communication, and all of these things are, essential to achieving goals, but certainly doing that through change as well. So we think that this is a time for marketers really to rise up. As an organization, of marketers, what's really important in that is the peer-to-peer nature of the community that we bring together, which is why we're doing this. We think that by doing so together, we're all going to be able to do an even better job within our roles, within our departments, our companies, our clients, in facilitating that change. So thank you all for being here, and this is kind of important to that. A couple technical things. We have this set up as a meeting rather than a webinar, so you'll notice that you can see everybody else that has joined here. Think about it just as the in-person events that we used to do, where you can scan the room and see who's paying attention and who you want to connect with, and that's why we're doing this as a meeting. So word to the wise, you are on camera unless you turn your camera off, so certainly beware of that. We'll kind of take the reins as far as your microphones are concerned, so we don't have any extraneous noise, from around your homes or your offices, so we can have a cohesive and focused conversation. When we go into the breakout rooms, your mics will be reactivated, and you can control those as well, so that you can engage in the conversation with everybody in those rooms. So my last little tip of recommendation is that I think that the best way to experience the event today is by using the speaker view rather than the gallery view, to kind of see who's going. We'll also have the ability, like I said, to mute everybody as we go too. So with that, I want to extend some welcomes here. I'm very glad to have Judy and Laura on board. One second here. I want to introduce Roland, who's our moderator today. And aside from being a really good friend and good mentor, Roland has been on our board with the Chicago chapter of the ANA for probably about 5 years. He is the founder and CEO of Aspire Up, which is a consulting firm that focuses on strengthening brands, on developing new products, and identifying growth opportunities for myriad companies. But they have a team of consultants that work with a lot of large companies as well, from Microsoft and Wells Fargo, ITW. Roland himself is also a 3-time CMO. He created and helped launch the Orbitz brand, and has worked with Clorox and Petopia as well. So he is a deft facilitator at this conversation that we're about to begin. So with that, I will turn it over to Roland.
Well, thank you, Dakota, and I hope I live up to that description of being deft. But thanks to everyone who's joined us. There's been a super high level of interest in this series, focusing on marketers managing change. Perhaps that's because you're all bored with nothing better to do. But I actually think it's because during times of great uncertainty, we're all searching for answers and eager to learn from others. The context for you all as marketers is highly complex. The pandemic has changed the way we do business, at least in the short term, and there are certainly going to be some long-term changes as well. And recently, the death of George Floyd and protests around the country has raised our national consciousness that the hurts of racism and injustice affect us all. Our strong belief is that right now, marketing leaders are more critical than ever. There are only going to be a few times in your careers when you're presented with such prime opportunities to lead. And that's because now your companies are all searching for answers from you. Your permission to lead comes from the fact that your most important role is to understand your customers and your markets and how they will be impacted by change. How will customer needs change? How can you align your brands and organizations around that? so you emerge from this and hopefully be stronger than before. Be thinking about this during the session. Our panelists, Judy Tolan and Laura Dunbar, are two of the strongest marketing leaders I know. They will share some of their own experiences and leadership lessons on what makes marketers so important during a time of change. And with that, you'll have a chance through smaller breakout groups to think about what you can do right now in your current situations to demonstrate value as a marketer in the midst of disruption. Now, this current pandemic feels a lot like September 11th, 2001. At that time, I was Chief Marketing Officer for Orbitz, the online travel agency backed by the 5 leading airlines. I had recently led the launch of Orbitz and what turned out to be the most successful e-commerce launch of all time. In the first month alone, we attracted 4 million travel shoppers and sold $100 million worth of travel. Orbitz generated tons of press coverage, and we became the #2 online travel agency within a few months. But when terrorists slammed jet planes into the World Trade Center, the world stood still. People were scared, much like this time. Travel stopped. Orbitz revenues went to near zero. We didn't know whether we could raise another round of capital to survive the storm. I had a marketing budget of $100 million and a team of about 200 people. And within a few months, we had to slash the budget by 80% and lay off a third of our team. What I learned then is it's so important to get beyond the most painful change quickly and cast a vision for what comes next. While everyone was scared for their jobs and thought the world may never be the same, we adjusted quickly. Travel came back to prior levels 15 months later, and Orbitz continued on as a leader in the space. Let me now introduce our panelists, and in a moment, I'll ask Judy to start by talking about what she's been dealing with the last few weeks. But I'll start by introducing Laura Dunbar. Laura is SVP Marketing at GHX. Now that stands for Global Healthcare Exchange, and it's the world's leading technology platform for connecting buyers and sellers of healthcare products. Laura's also a client, and she and I worked together to relaunch and humanize the GHX brand a year ago. She's also led marketing at several other healthcare and technology companies, all of which involved either high growth or change initiatives. And a professional accomplishment that I'm most excited about in Laura is she has a level 1 certification with the Napa Valley Wine Academy. Our other panelist is Judy Tolan. She's also a highly experienced marketer who became an expert in managing change. She's the most senior leader, actually, at Facebook's operation here in Chicago and leads global business marketing for Facebook's scaled solutions business. That basically means she leads all of digital marketing, customer analytics, customer education all around the world. She leads a team of over 400 people. Before that, Judy held CMO roles at Life Fitness, Wells Fargo Bank, and GE Capital. So Judy, I'll start with you. You were recruited by Facebook just under a year ago to manage a business growing well into double digits. Then COVID hit. Give us a sense of what that was like. What actions have you had to take to deal with the sudden change?
Thank you, Roland. First of all, it's so great to see everyone here virtually. I see really quite a few familiar faces, so hello. And Roland, thank you for that very gracious introduction. I've been at Facebook for almost a year now, and we think of COVID-19 as basically a dichotomy of 2 worlds for us at Facebook. One world is our consumer platform, right? During COVID, many shelter in places. It was streaming times were up. People were utilizing platforms in a way that we didn't even envision. Club quarantine and versus and all these things on Instagram, and to the point where many of our engineers were working overtime. But on the ad side of the house, the B2B side of the house, which is where I am, many of our verticals that advertise fell off the map, right? Travel, recreation. And so for us, we had to quickly pivot. And so we've really focused on a lot of different areas as marketers. And the marketing focus for us has really been around what can we do to help, right? Because as marketers and brand leaders, we want to continue to provide value, even in a time where typical slogans or advertising are fine tone, will fall tone deaf. So, as Roland mentioned, one of the things that I'm responsible for is all the digital marketing and all customer education. So, and I know many of you are, but we're doubling down on just using our tools to help people, right? How do small businesses leverage our tools in a way that will allow them to remain afloat? And it's been a huge change for us. Many of the things that we did were in-person activations, et cetera. And then we'll talk a little bit more about it, but also we've seen this huge interest around how people can restart, pivot, up-level their skills, and take training courses. So right now we're seeing 5 times the interest in leveraging online tools, digital marketing tools, aspiring marketers for all of us here who love our profession, who want to learn more. So we've had to invest, expand, and this is global, right? Around the world, so that we can have live Q&As, live training courses to help people learn more about digital marketing, because their interest is there, potentially because we're in a recession, their career has changed, or this is the time where they've got some quiet time, shelter in place, and they really would like to figure out a way to make themselves better through this very difficult time for us. But also, it's no secret, and you guys can see, I am a Black woman in America during this time. So we have a recession, we have a global pandemic, and we have essentially a period of significant heightened awareness of the racial injustices that are here. And so as a leader at Facebook, as a Black leader at Facebook, there's been an additional burden that I happily carry for us, for our brand, on how we show up and how we leverage our brand to do good and to also drive change. And that's probably been, Roland, the most exciting thing that I have worked on in my career. I mean, literally in my career. It's like the intersection of all the things that you're passionate about, your profession, right? Serving others, but also your personal legacy and how we drive that going forward. So it is an amazing time of change for us. For the business side, look, we are very lucky. We're still up year over year from a business performance standpoint, and you'll see it some of the Q1 data. So from a marketing standpoint, we've had a little bit more latitude to do some more exciting things. But that's been our world. But then there's the employee aspect of it as well. And I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but I think Facebook may have been the first company to send everyone home. We've been working from home since the 2nd week of March. And we will be working from home virtually through the end of the year and probably through next July. And so the ways of working have changed, how we can, have these type of events, but also how we are leveraging our platforms and marketing the platforms to affect and to also drive this new virtual reality on how we engage. And the good thing, I think, is marketers, for all of us, I'm finding that the virtual engagement, when done well and done with humanity, actually can be some of the best marketing that we deliver. And so that's really what's happening. Changes in the business, changes for us as marketers, and really changes for us as employees as well.
Yeah, thanks for that, Judy. It's been great to see you playing such a role model at GHX. Sorry, that's Laura. at Facebook. I know that you've been in front of thousands of people several times giving talks in Mountain View in Brazil and to employees and customers. And it's great that you've been able to represent not just the marketing function, but the unity that Facebook wants to convey and needs to convey in terms of how it is dealing with race relations and connecting with audiences and recognizing sort of the role that technology plays in being part of society. So it's been great to see that. Laura, we'll turn to you. Healthcare is one of the markets that's been impacted most dramatically by the pandemic. And you're running marketing for the world's leading tech company that manages supply chain for healthcare, you know, moving PPE to where it needs to go and all that stuff. What's been your world like at GHX these last couple of months? What are some of the short-term actions you've had to take?
Well, thank you, Roland, and it's really a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invitation and the kind introduction and the acknowledgement of my one of my crowning achievements of being a level 1 certified for wine. So thank you for that. So it's been really interesting, and you did a really nice job of framing up and describing who GHX is and what we do. I wish I could say it were for better circumstances, but actually describing to people what GHX does has actually gotten a lot easier these last few months. And it's really because of how the healthcare supply chain has been making national headlines. You know, you had mentioned we're a supply chain automation and data analytics company. We've created one of the world's largest healthcare communities that really consists of hospitals and health systems and the manufacturers and suppliers of the products that are used in patient care. So not only do we help those businesses operate more efficiently, but we help them make really good decisions about what products deliver the best care at the right cost. And so you can kind of look at us as a bit of a matchmaker in healthcare. The reason why it's important to really fully grasp what GHX is, the community that we built, is it's only then that we can really kind of realize and communicate what it has been like for our customers these last few months. You know, it's not uncommon for us to have heard 18 to 20-hour days, thousands of emails flooding inboxes, customers unsure if they can find supplies that are needed to protect caregivers and patients. I mean, this is life stuff, right? And all this uncertainty around supplies and spread of disease, and frankly, if their own health and jobs were going to be secure. How that's really come to manifest for us is customers weren't picking up our calls, they weren't reading our emails, and we certainly weren't walking through their doors. So similar to Judy, you know, we kind of swung into action, and what could we do to help our customers? Well, as it turns out, what we had building for the last 20 years made this a moment of truth for GHX, because what our customers really needed in that moment and still need is a bit of a life raft in the way of fast information about where to find alternative supplies. They needed things like data to validate whether supplies they were finding were equivalent to the ones they normally use. And they needed to know, importantly, if they could trust new suppliers that were popping up to fill skyrocketing demand for things like PPE, which, as you pointed out, has now become a term that's part of our national vernacular. And not to mention, with these pop-up care facilities outside of hospitals, they needed to make sure those supplies got to the right place. So we swung into action, we tapped into our data, our capabilities, we fortified our industry partnerships, and we swung into action to curate the information and enable these processes. Similar to Judy's team, it required us to pivot because everyone on the call knows that your marketing department, ours, we weren't just sitting idly by waiting for a pandemic, right? And when the coronavirus hit, you know, we had been in full swing executing marketing plans. We were just getting ready to kick off our big national customer event, which was to have happened in April. And of course, all that came to a screeching halt as we mobilized to support our customers. So just a few key things that the team has been working on last 2 to 3 months. First of all, we immediately stood up our COVID-19 Information Center, which became the heartbeat for data and information for the healthcare supply chain. We canceled our national event, and instead we replaced it with virtual satellite events. These are really quick hit 30-minute webinars to teach our customers how to optimize their GHX data and tools around navigating the critical issues. We even spun up free offers to promote access to solutions that would help anyone in healthcare supply chain identify alternative support supplies that they were looking for. And again, as I mentioned, we built some industry partnerships, tapped into those, and vetted hundreds of new non-traditional suppliers to give our customers the confidence they needed. All of this, of course, required us to really rally with our sales and customer success teams and get the word out about what we were doing to help our customers. So suffice it to say, it was all hands on deck. It's been all about the customer, and certainly not about our lead gen campaigns, the event that we had to cancel, or our pipelines. So just to give you a bit of a flavor for what's been happening, maybe a bit of a unique experience with GHX and the nature of our customers and what we've been doing to sort of rally around them, that really had nothing to do with the plans that we laid at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, pretty dramatic change, Laura, and both you and Judy had to make some pretty extreme moves and unwind a lot of ongoing activity for marketing to adjust. And I think you said it best, that it really starts with the customer, and how is the customer changing, and what do you need to do to serve the customer. And I'm gonna shift a little bit, because we've been talking about what we've had to do in the short term the last couple of months, but I want to think ahead now. And as the world opens up, what I'm seeing is customers in some ways will be changed for the longer term. Pandemic has brought I guess both trends and catalysts. There's trends that have accelerated, like moving to touchless digital transactions for those businesses that weren't fully there, and most businesses aren't fully there, or catalysts to do things differently, like employees working remotely, perhaps forever. Twitter says they're not going to require working in an office ever again. Or shifting advertising to communicate brand values. We've seen a lot of that in response to the racial tensions that have become even more present. And, as you think about, addressing change in a world that looks completely different than it did before, we can't do things the way we've always done them. So I'm curious, Judy, what are some of the things you see changing in the world around you that impact Facebook's customers, that mean you need to do things differently, not just for the short term?
Yeah, it's, I think the better response is what hasn't changed. I'll be very honest. Our entire world has shifted. Right now, a few things that we've done, just that I think would be helpful for everyone to know. A lot of our small businesses are really struggling with liquidity. So Facebook really jumped in and leveraged and gave millions and millions of dollars to help small businesses to stay alive. And we called it our Small Business Grants Program. But then we quickly jumped in, leveraging our business resource hub to, per Laura's aspect, just really summarize and put all of the key information that they needed to go from offline to online. Because all of you probably know that one small business that you love, they might not even take credit cards. They've got, the elderly guy in the back that does the books and paper, and they were the last people to go online. And all of that has changed. You can't survive really in this framework. So we've worked on marketing our offline to online programs, and then we have changed the way that we train those that leverage our platforms to grow. We have 140 million small businesses leverage our platform every day around the globe, 2.65 billion users. And what we found is that people are leveraging small videos, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, especially small business owners, to learn something new, tips, tools. So we started breaking up our marketing into small, what we call personally snackable bites. Here's a story about how to change your office hours. Here's a story about how to put a sticker up. If I'm a nonprofit, here's a quick story on IG to learn how to submit donations. And guess what? Donations are up 200%, and the millions and millions of dollars have been raised on our platform. So our marketing has really had to change and be flex and be resilient, but also in times of change, products like ours change faster. So just like when COVID happened, yeah, and Laura mentioned it, we had this beautiful plan, marketing plan that was global that we were so proud of. Put it on all these slides. We had all the budget allocations and everything. And then the world changes and we had to rip it up. Literally ripped up our entire marketing plan. And our marketing plan now is focused on all these critical, almost snackable items that we're highlighting. And the product has changed. So if you guys notice, there's things like rooms. So we're on a Zoom call, but this will probably be my only Zoom call of the day because I leverage rooms and our technologies all the time. That was fast-tracked because of COVID. And we had to adjust our marketing for it. There's also something that we just announced around Facebook Shops, where it allows people to leverage our platforms to conduct e-commerce. And people forget, especially in the Black community right now, we've been studying this and listening to our customers very succinctly. The majority, there's 2.5 million Black businesses, small Black businesses in the US. There's 3.3 Latinx small Black businesses, small Latinx businesses. And the majority of those, many of them have employees of one or two, maybe sole proprietors. And so they can leverage, and they're not bankable. A lot of them are not banked. So things like Facebook Shops, payments within WhatsApp allow them to survive, but our marketing had to be a lot more flexible. No one's, traveling to see an out-of-home ad, right? Print advertising is great, but leveraging the technology we have is really important. Also we've pivoted all of our internal productions. We used to do, don't quote me on the exact number, thousands of events. And when COVID happened and they sent us home, we had a 6,000 person event that was scheduled in a week. And we stood up our own internal production system and put, I think, one of the best internally produced sales conferences to get the message out about our new plan and our new approach. And then we sat back and said, why did we ever, the in-person is nice, but why would we ever fly 6,000 people in for a conference ever again? Right? I mean, why would we do that? That's a lot of people, a lot of airfare. So those are the things that we're learning and things that we're changing. So
some great wisdom there. And for all you marketers, please take notes. How can you move various activities from in-person to virtual to better connect with your customers? Because your customers may check out from you, may be harder to get in touch with them. How can you turn your message into small, snappable bites that are engaging and using the technology platforms? Laura, let's turn to you. How are you seeing the need to change for the long term in the marketing of GHX?
Yeah, thank you, Roland. And I would just say, Judy, as a person who comes from a family where we have a number of small businesses, and I may or may not be a Facebook advertising moonlighter for some of those small businesses on the weekend, I have seen how quickly your business has pivoted to help small business, and it's remarkable. So just a side personal note there. Look, I think there's no doubt, the pandemic has fundamentally changed the way that we market and we sell, and some of the examples that Judy gave. I'd say the shift toward digital and virtual is probably the most obvious area of that change and something we're all feeling. Mm-hmm. But in many ways, I think that shift to digital and virtual, it was really just an acceleration of what was already in motion before the pandemic hit. And aside from that, I think there's two things that really come to mind for me here. First, I think we need to reflect. I mean, once the dust settles, and by no means the dust has completely settled, but COVID-19 has been a shock to the system. And I think there's an opportunity here to pause and examine everything we're positioning and everything we're communicating under a different lens. I think it's important to realize that this situation, not just with the pandemic, but also with the social unrest that you guys were talking about earlier, This has absolutely changed the way that customers judge our companies. They're judging us under a different criteria now than they were before. And again, that may transcend what's happening with the pandemic, encompass more broadly of what's happening with the social unrest. So, certainly examining products and features and messaging and value props, but really looking closely at every customer touch point that we have, and remeasuring it, I think, for consistency, for excellence, and really ensuring that it reflects our core values. I mean, that's one of the things that's certainly top of mind. And I think to do this well, you guys pointed out, you got to keep listening to the customer. You got to keep asking questions, really understanding how their world has changed, and what that means for how we best serve them moving forward, and not making any assumptions. And particularly as a mission-driven healthcare technology company, for GHX, this is absolutely critical for us. And then second, once we've reflected, we got to move faster. And I love the word snackable, and that is something that is on the lips of many on my team nowadays. I mean, I think if this pandemic has taught us anything, it's that there is an absolute premium on speed in terms of communicating and engaging with our customers. I think these last 3 to 4 months have been a really fast but intense coming of age for a lot of marketing organizations, in terms of the colleagues that I've been speaking to. And I would expect that there's going to be a greater interest in agile marketing models moving forward. This is something that we've certainly been going deeper with on my team. Look, our customers expect us to move faster and faster than ever. And there's really no going back at this point. So speed, agility, listening to customers, re-examining what we communicate, how we position, and not making any assumptions about what our customers find value in, because the world has certainly changed.
Yeah, that's great. Keep talking to customers, keep asking and interpreting what you need to do to address the change. It's not always obvious, so you actually need to carve out time to think that through and get input from others in sort of roundtable sessions to really think about what needs to change. A big part of this ANA value proposition is the chance for you all to connect with your peers. And we want you to be able to hear from a variety of other voices. We're going to hear from Judy and Laura again in a moment, but we're going to send you into breakout sessions. It will happen automatically. You'll be with approximately a third of the group. And what we want you to do is process this question to bring these points home. What can you do right now as marketers to demonstrate value in the midst of high change? Marketing budgets are perhaps under more pressure than ever for many businesses, and it's really important for you to sort of recognize what you can do to demonstrate that value. So we had a few interesting points that I'm sure will be in common to many of you out there, and this is a good time, by the way, to just keep track of things that might apply to your businesses. Alan Lopez at Hillrom, which is, I think, the leader in hospital beds and other medical devices. They were dealing with huge demand, actually, for COVID. So one of those companies in a rare situation that way. But because marketing dollars became more scarce, there was the need to focus with much greater targeting and precision and messaging to those who will be receptive to a message, and a message that was helpful and not as promotional. And I think that probably applies to a lot of our businesses. Also, a lot of focus on virtual enablement of sales, leveraging technology tools like LinkedIn, of course, Facebook, so that their salespeople can be more equipped to deal with people virtually. Vesna Arsic spoke about, who worked recently with Kantar, adding value to marketing by sharpening your own skills. Obviously, digital marketing and digital capabilities are now more important than ever, so we all can do more to improve ourselves. And also, it's a time of constant change in society, which means careers tend to change more frequently. So being very aware of your personal brand and keeping it sharp, keeping it relevant through training, and also in how you present yourself on LinkedIn. Carolyn Magoski at Molex talked about enabling their sales force, global sales force, with much more focus on creating content that they can use with customers. So quality videos, snackable videos, but rather than polished, which is sort of where they were before, now much more focus on authenticity and relatability for customers. People are sitting at home often, and they're not in a frame of mind to watch an ad. So think about how you communicate. And then Brooke with Walker Sands spoke about how more and more companies are outsourcing their marketing operations, leveraging data more effectively to reach their prospects and nurture leads, make the personalization tools more sophisticated so that they can understand who they're talking to, and enable sales to work with people differently, which has been mentioned a couple of times. So those are some highlights from mine. Maybe Laura, do you want to summarize a couple of nuggets from your group?
Sure, and Judy and I actually got randomly put in the same group. So maybe I'll comment on one and then she can comment on another. Kyle Brigham at Marcel expressed that his agency is taking a more active role in saying yes, with the goal of building stronger partnerships with their customers. A lot of their customers are in hospitality. He had one customer who's in the real estate development business, and while it didn't seem like a great time to be in that business, they wanted to relaunch a website, but were a little bit skittish about whether or not to invest. Marcel rallied and got something creative going with them and actually helped them build a value prop and a business case for the C-suite. Carla Carey talked about the important role of internal marketing and employee engagement. And a lot of time that gets lost in the shuffle here. And then making sure that, again, evaluating brands and how you're communicating and positioning, and do those really reflect your core values. There was also a lot of interest in how teams move more quickly, this interest in snackables. And so Judy and I both related that we both use agile approaches while informal, more of a pod-based approach. So I don't know if Judy, you would add anything different there, but a lot of interest, and maybe a topic of a future webinar series on agile marketing.
I agree. Yeah, that I think you did a beautiful job there, Laura. The only small add I'd have is that now more than ever is the time for agile marketing, and it doesn't have to be some large-scale process that's incorporated. And we talked about that. In light of the snackable approach to marketing, your marketing execution can also be very quick and very fast. And so that's something that we just started to unpack. There's a lot more to talk about.
Tony, I know you were moderating one of the groups. Did you want to share a couple of nuggets, and maybe Dakota, if you have any?
Just really quickly, I was in the group with Judy and Laura. It was a great group.
What do you know?
So maybe. Yeah, we had a lot of fun. And I think, one of the things too with agile marketing, it was great. We were talking about the size of teams, and then Judy even shared within 2 weeks, they did something at Facebook that's going to be announced later that would have taken 6 months at other corporations.
Wow.
So that's the speed we're talking about that's happening throughout our industries. Thank you.
Dakota?
I won't summarize too much from our particular breakout session.
Because you were in with Laura and Judy as well, right?
Yeah, we were. I don't know what everybody else was doing, except perhaps this, that so many common themes amongst everybody right now, but also this weird sense of cognitive dissonance. If you want to think about it that way, of things going really fast and really slow. We got to move very quickly, but people are taking the time to really kind of develop thoughtful approaches to things because they have more time in their schedules, no commutes and things like that. So it's, I guess to everybody, it's finding that way to pace yourself and what you need to do within your organization, knowing that you can be particularly effective right now in so many different new and exciting ways. So maybe with that, I'll kind of begin to wrap it up. And thank you everybody for joining us. A particular thanks to Judy and Laura and Roland for leading a really fantastic conversation. I also want to give shout outs to our board members who were able to join and help moderate rooms: Tony Kempa, Lisa Smith, Philip Black, Betsy Fiden, Julia Porashkova, Suzanne Martin, I think may have gotten on a little bit late, and Alon Lopez. Big thanks to the wizard behind the curtain, Maggie Orchard, for orchestrating all of this kind of stuff. You know, we know that we're going to continue to do this. So a couple quick commercial plugs. Next week on Wednesday, June 24th, our Young Professional Association within our chapter is hosting a webinar that is all about marketing tools for kind of gaining that competitive edge right now. There's so many different tools and resources and classes. And so they've done the work and reached out to different experts to kind of figure out what's best and break through the clutter. And they're going to do a really cool presentation on that. It's an online version of an event that we've done with them in the past. Even though it's put on by the Young Professional Group, it is open to everybody, and I strongly recommend it. There's so many kind of good things that you can learn. So details for that are on our website. And then our next iteration of this event, How Marketers Are Leading Through Change, will be 2 weeks from today on July 2nd. We have Steve Handmaker, who is the CMO of Assurance, and Rissa Redden, who is the Senior Vice President of Marketing for PayNet. Roland will, again, deftly lead us through that conversation. So we're very excited for that. And then we'll have another one 2 weeks after that. So it'll be kind of the fourth in our series. So if you can make it, please join us again. It'll be lots of new perspectives, new conversation. If you enjoyed this, tell people about it, you know, and be healthy, be happy, and do good work. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Judy and Laura.
Bye.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roland.
Have a great
Bye,
day.
guys.
Bye.